You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less. You check cause I'm chess, what's happening next? Yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson. He got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just wrote an obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take your redemption. Just kill no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression.
G'day everyone and welcome back. I'm Christian, your host for Season Patriots of Down Under, and welcome to this very first of hopefully many. We'll be doing very many readings from this book of Genesis for a New Space Age. So today I would like to go through the first chapter with everyone and read the prologue, the introduction, and the first chapter consisting of 17 pages. All up, we're looking at around about probably 20 pages, to be honest, between the prologue, intro, and the actual chapter. I think we're in for an epic information session from this book, how much it directly correlates what we are presently going through and what we are about to actually undertake as a planet, as a civilization, as a group of people. So let's get into it. What do you reckon? Okay. Well, anyway, as I said, the name of this book is Genesis for a New Space Age by John B. Leith. Now, this is basically about the secret development of the round-winged plane, the extraterrestrials inside our Earth, the Earth, being inner Earth civilizations, and the arrival of the extraterrestrials. So, this is by John B. Leith, written in 1980. Okay. Now, Genesis for the New Space Age contents, dedication, introduction, and prologue. Okay, this is what it consists of. Okay, so part 1, the space race. Chapter 1, Earth under surveillance. Chapter 2, early American development of prototype and round-wing planes. International response, Chapter 3, international response to identified flying objects. Chapter 4, US readies new aerial marvel for possible German conflict. Chapter 5, Germans acquire US round-wing planes. Chapter 6, US shares secret of new round-wing planes with allies. Chapter 7, Allied development and wartime use of new round-wing plane. Chapter 8, Germans abandon the fatherland in giant subs and their model of the round-wing plane. Hence being the Hannibal program that was developed in 1943 onwards, 42 probably actually more so. I think the actual real start, personally, I think goes back to around about 1938, to be honest, with a couple of incidents that happened in Germany, one being specifically outside of Germany in the Black Forest. That can be confirmed and validated by Dr. Salla's work. If any of you don't know who Dr. Salla is, Michael Salla, please go over to exopolitics.org, his website, and save that to your favorites, or by any means go over to his channel on YouTube and subscribe to his channel of Dr. Michael Salla there, and hit that notification bell, or you can go over to his Telegram channel and follow the information that he puts out there. Some of his information is some of the most cutting edge in relation to disclosure, and I believe just recently he did a very good comprehensive overview of everything that's been happening and developing within the UFO, UAP, USO, UFO community that has been changing the abbreviation names for the last 60, 70 years now that they've changed it for. But he did a very comprehensive overview of the whole, of the overall whole of this disclosure that is going on, and I can't recommend him highly enough for anyone to go and actually check him out. He's also available on Telegram, and you can subscribe to him there as well. And that notification will follow him on Telegram for daily updates and information coming out by the hour. Okay. Chapter 9, Vanishing Germans Discover the Mystery of Ages. Chapter 10, Admiral Richard Byrd finds the South Pole entrance to Inner World. Chapter 11, Byrd stalks the missing Nazis. Chapter 12, US peacefully invades the Inner World. Chapter 13, Byrd's aerial disaster sets post-war postures. Part 2 is the Inner World of Extraterrestrials. It's Chapter 14, Man from Atlantis. Curious, they made a TV show about this in the 1970s. I followed it avidly as a child. Chapter 15, US post-war military development of anti-gravity principle. Chapter 16, Germans build sovereign nations in inner Earth. Chapter 17, Strangers in Our Skies. Chapter 19, A Day to Remember on Planet Earth, the first battle with hostile alien craft from outer space. Chapter 18, 19, is that right? 17, 18, yes, 19. Chapter 19, A New Age Dawning. Sorry for that, I got mixed up with my Roman numerals for a sec. Epilogue. The appendix, social, political, economic, and religious life, inner notes, diagrams, photos, and documents. So we'll be showing, I'll also be showing photographs that I've actually collected along the way to actually show just examples of some of the things that we'll be talking about in some of this. So I'll be going back to it after the actual reading and showing you some of the photos that I've got, but also showing what's in this at the end of our actual reading when we finish the actual chapters, or as they show them through the chapters. Okay, so here we go, is the introduction. So let's get into it. All right, this is beautiful. Some of the most closely guarded secrets of this century, and perhaps since time began, will be discovered within the pages of this book, I should say. At the heart of the long-kept secrets is the phenomena, euphemistically known as unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. That's the original term coined by Congress and military types in the 1940s and 50s, which certain nations of this world have developed with the aid of extraterrestrials from our planets. The manuscript is entirely original from primary sources, most of which must remain anonymous. Over 100 interviews were conducted. Research for the project took 3 years of two men's time plus thousands of hours contributed freely by others, some of whom placed their careers in jeopardy to do so. Material was gathered, mostly in the USA, but also visited was the USSR, Mexico, Germany, Canada, France, England, Spain, Brazil, and the Vatican. Funnily enough, Vatican. Washington was there was where the real struggle was fought to pry the truth from bureaucratic vaults. During the task of researching projects related to UFOs, a few allies wanted the entire story explained. A few allies who wanted the entire story explained were gradually located in the walks of the capital's life. Some of those who came to our aid were senators, congressmen, top military men in all of the services, and high-ranking civil servants, as well as agents and retired agents of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, or the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Through the efforts of all those sympathetic people, the book was completed. Its contents simply attempt to open up, without apology, the post-war history of the so-called UFO for examination. The USA, Canada, as well as Britain and Germany are the main custodians of the secret UFO knowledge revealed herein. But only in such freedom-loving nations such as the USA could there have surfaced bold men willing to defy tradition to disclose the buried facts about the new age of visiting spaceships and inner and outer terrestrials. Notice the word inner and outer. The manuscript did not begin on a theme redevelopment of the so-called UFO. It was started more as a doubtful question about the phenomena in general And as ensuing facts were enlarged, the story of an international competition was recognized, which had begun in the 1930s, and which the authors labeled the space race. Quite soon, in the uncovering of additional information, it became apparent that Earth was no longer a singular planet on which men looked and listened for the reality of similar life elsewhere in the universe. Instead, it was evident that Earth itself was that sphere. Notice that they say sphere, so that debunks right there in this information right there, the fact that it's spherical. It's also described in the Book of Enoch. For those of you who don't know what the Book of Enoch is, please go read it. The Book of Enoch describes clearly when he was whisked away into the heavens with a fiery chariot. We all know what that means now. He saw the curvature of the earth, and he saw all of the things placed on it, and he saw how beautiful it was, a spherical ball in the blackness and the darkness of space, and the pinholes of light poking through it. Stars. So it clearly describes a ball in the Book of Enoch. Okay? So what was it that took him up? Why these books have been referenced by us, we used to go and have a look at, because they've been taken out and removed by those in power, so that we do not actually discover the truth. So please go and check out the Book of Enoch. Where were we? 1930s. Information. Yes, sorry. Sphere in this solar system. Sorry about that. I had to find my place. The Earth itself was that sphere in this solar system, which sister planets had been monitoring closely for years. We were not alone, was the discovery which we, the authors, and countless others had made. But who would believe that report if we were to tell? This was the mind-boggling dilemma. Right from the start, it was anticipated that much of the new information sought on the space age could not be freed from security wraps for national defense reasons, which indeed proved to be so. Sympathetic to this corollary, the authors did not require at all into military, inquire at all into military secrets. But a recurring irritation was the unavailability of certain material of related UFO importance, which will not be released for 50 years from its happening. That keeps many relevant events hidden till the 1990s or later. In this later case, perhaps only history or time or unknown witnesses will come forward to expose the truth. But the military considerations of this explosive knowledge had been also suppressed simply because of its phenomenal and disquieting aspects and the effect they would have in the public mind and spirit. Nevertheless, if the story of man's sudden immersion into the interplanetary world of extraterrestrials isn't unfolded in part, at least its telling may come too late. For the inhabited solar system in which we dwell and the equally inhabited space beyond is far more complex than the average intelligent person would realize. It is, in fact, a universe of principalities and powers which have traditionally been visiting and perhaps seeding planet Earth for a thousand millenniums, and which probably will continue, whether or not we accept their incredible reality. It is this knowledge that will confound most religionists and many scientists and educators in the span of years more than any other current revelation about space. An eminent physicist of Stanford University has stated that committed Christians of all faiths will likely be the most unbelieving as in Galileo's time. Absolutely, I completely concur with that statement. It may be that the greatest danger to the thoughtful reader will be his despondent reflection that God does not exist, or at least has become remote and impersonal. I beg to differ that. I've met God. It's not a man or a woman, that's for sure. It's an energy, it's a source. On the other hand, the revised rationale of the agnostic maybe to elevate man into God's abode, raising man's ego image still higher. But what to rightly believe will become self-evident to thoughtful people when they know for certain that the horizons of the heavens are endless, and that there is a force unlimited by time and space, which must be omnipotent and omnipresent to fashion and turn the endless wheels of the cosmos, wherein Earthman may only be an insignificant figure. For those who will think this material is science fiction in disguise, they are asked to delay judgment until the conclusion of the book. Meanwhile, a few of the problems encountered are shared with the reader. One foreign government complained to the US State Department that their embassy staff were being badgered by the authors. And in another country, the stay of the researcher was cut short when he was asked to leave. The Vatican registered a strong diplomatic protest with the President of the USA that one of its top emissaries was interrogated and forcibly searched while bringing material into the USA for the authors. A special hearing of congressional and Senate committees met in Washington to act on the refusal by the government agency to release unclassified information as required under the Freedom of Information Act. In other case, the researcher was taken into custody for attempting to photograph non-classified National Archives exhibits, and an executive order was secured to release him for detention. And just as offensive was a forceful reminder that the collecting of information and pictures from our German enemies was treasonable under still existing wartime statutes. Wow. The drama of the subterfuge on both sides went on, and in itself would comprise a book of skirmishes with the military and science worlds that would be both laughable and yet lamentable. But as the story of the round-winged plane, UFO, USO, UAP, whatever you want to call it, unfolds, it will be realized how the authorities became committed to a bond of science going back 30 years. Okay, well, at that point in time, yes, it's been roughly 70 years now. Nevertheless, the gathering of information for this book was not simply a game of the pen versus the sword. It was a rivalry of serious intent by the authors and those who came to their aid to persuade the government sources to reveal long overdue facts on the UFO enigma. Excuse me. And for those opposing forces who had been made keepers of the secret by the previous generations or administrations as well, it was a concerted attempt to dissuade the authors to go home and forget about UFOs and the nation's possible involvement. The curiosity, excuse me, curiously, the whole series of episodes has produced a grudging respect for the thrust of science in the free world and the hidden might of its military. Only in a democracy could the forces of constraint and openness meet in confrontation, and the lesser of the two protagonists be allowed to survive and tell of the struggle. As this century ends, a reluctant United States has been shown onto the world stage at the most critical time of our civilization. Whether America likes the role or not, she and her friends are the star players who must take major parts in shaping this planet's destiny, here and beyond. For far from being weaklings, the USA and her allies are the noble giants who hold aloft over our planet the shield that would keep our world intact and still free. Wow. We have a prologue. Okay, there are dozens. See, for me, this is actually a first reading for me as well. I have not read this book, so I'll be reading this alongside you, the audience, at the same time. This is all going to be a matter of self-discovery for me as well. I'm seeing how far this validates and confirms as to what is presently going on, unfolding presently within the actual disclosure community, presently on planet Earth. It's going to take a quick sip of my coffee here. A little bit dry enough. And we'll continue. Yes, I'm wearing the Empire Strikes Back shirt today and my Boba Fett hat, Mandalorian hat. Yes, Mando at heart. Okay, so let's get into it. The prologue. There are a dozen nations on planet Earth capable of making nuclear bombs. There is an estimated stockpile of at least 30,000 heavy nuclear bombs among major countries. Well, that to me now is irrelevant information due to the fact that we know about a lot of nuclear missile silos, whether it be in the US, France, Canada, the European Union or whatever, were visited heavily during the late 1970s and early 80s, even some up to the early 90s as well, where all of these missile silos and their missiles were shut down, or activated, I should say, by unknown forces flying over their bases. And once these missiles have been shut down, upon inspection, most uranium warheads were depleted. Most warheads were depleted of their uranium components, so therefore they would no longer yield a nuclear capacity if dropped or flown into a city. They no longer have the capacity to blow up and kill millions as such. So therefore, we know that the Galactic Federation has had an ongoing presence in regard to disarming the nuclear weapons, hence the reason why they built next generation weapons, D.U.M.B.S weapons, rail guns, rods from God, okay, all these sorts of weapons, okay, have been developed specifically because other weapons that we had been actually disarmed, and any presence that they might have on display today in our present, such as Russia flexing just recently their military might and showing stockpiles of Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles, very much similar design to the ones that they had in the 1980s, especially from the movie Spies Like Us with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, if any of you remember that. That intercontinental ballistic missile was loaded up on the back of a truck, which had a launcher, which erected upright upon activation. And you could actually plug in coordinates through a keyboard to actually program the onboard navigation system for the missile to target right there on site. So what I saw recently is actually no different to what back in the 1980s. Very similar. And to think that, I mean, at the time of the writing of this book, there would have been, yes, exactly, probably 30,000 heavy nuclear bombs. Remember, this book was written in the 1980s, okay, among major countries. And 3 new ones are being added per day. Written in the 1980s. If only a fraction of this destructive force were delivered, it could kill nearly all life on the face of the Earth, contaminating the planet and its survivors for decades. The atmospheric and geological upheavals would also change the Earth, as it is presently composed that the highly civilized areas would disappear in the dust of war or beneath rising nations. As man's technical ability has pyramided to overkill his fellow men and destroy their abodes, peace in the heart of mankind and nationhood has become only a hollow phrase, or at best, a fleeting hope. It certainly does feel and seem that way sometimes, but I think hope personally is the quintessential of surviving. Having faith and having hope is the quintessential, absolutely. Onto this mad planet has come a new phenomenon, the unidentified flying objects, and with them, the outer and extraterrestrials. Chapter 1. Okay, here we go. So here we go with 17 pages, Chapter 1. Earth under surveillance. All right. The sun was 2 o'clock high on June 24th, 1947, over Mount Rainier in Washington State, USA. A commercial pilot flying northerly in a clear sky over Cascade Mountains fixed his sight to the left where a flash had occurred at 10,000 foot elevation of the towering mountain. As experienced 50-year-old Kenneth Arnold scanned the reflection, little did he think that his description of the object seen near the burst of light would result in the coining of a new universal word. Here is how Arnold expressed himself that afternoon, as reported later in newspapers around the world. The 9 objects I saw flying like saucers if you skipped them across the water. Although what Arnold saw was highly technical, he pictured it in a simple idiomatic term, which thereafter caught the imagination of kings and commoners across the globe. Thus was born the age of the flying saucers, in the 20th century. And no one scientist or seer could turn back the clock ticking toward the arrival of the new aerial age. Hundreds of thousands or similar sightings in the current years would leave the world divided about the controversy. Simply understood, the question raised would be, are the flying saucers real pieces of hardware, or are they figments of the imagination? Unknown to Arnold, in the immediate post-war years, the unidentified flying objects he observed had been constructed and had taken off from the geological area beneath which he flew. In his reflections, he would not surmise that he had just witnessed the evidence of an aeronautical secret which had been kept under official wraps for over 20 years. What the veteran pilot of fixed-wing aircraft had watched were his own countrymen piloting revolutionary breakthrough in aerodynamics named round-wing aircraft. Today, the latest versions of those early round-wing planes, which Kenneth Arnold glimpsed over the Cascade Mountains, have escaped the bonds of Earth gravity and thus weightless patrol the outer skies of this planet and venture fearlessly into the realms of vast space. At this juncture, before the wider explanation of the intriguing aerial phenomena is revealed, the average reader will recognize this unanswered riddle. Never has it been told to laymen the identities of the thousands of aerial sightings seen by professional airmen or ordinary spectators in the last half of this century. Page 1 done. To state the conundrum briefly, the so-called flying saucers seen by Arnold and countless others across the globe were called unidentified flying objects by the United States Air Force. The terminology became commonplace but deceptive. Hence, the shorter euphemism, UFOs, was used to describe such aerial sightings over the world over. This being so, the reader will first become acquainted with 4 identifiable aerial happenings which have been declassified. They are all researched and documented cases from the years 1947, 1948, and 1955, and are actual crash landings and subsequent encounters with beings from other worlds. Following these reports, the story will be revealed of the round-winged plane as it was developed on planet Earth. And when the revelation is unfolded, quite imperceptibly, the following conclusion will dawn on most readers. The genesis of a new age has already begun for Earthlings, and it is self-evident we are late in joining the interplanetary creatures who have ventured into the vastness of the universe in search of other intelligent beings. Case number 1, riddle of the crashed UFOs. One night in 1955, 3 manned spaceships from beyond Earth's own solar system crashed into the desert near Farmington, New Mexico. Their unscheduled landings shed a display of fireworks that was seen by hundreds of people for 20 miles. Yet few Americans, more than 22 years later, have heard of the hush-up accident, except those in classified military circles. The 3 intergalactic spaceships with 28 beings on board brought to planet Earth its most revealing evidence that mankind was not alone in the universe, and that Earth was under military surveillance by unfriendly invaders. Indeed, they were. They'd already been engaged for many thousands of years before that. This revelation also sobered Earth's scientific communities because, beyond a doubt, the alien craft were right out of a space odyssey of the future. For reader understanding of the alien spacecraft crashes, known as the Farmington Incident, it began about 450 miles from the crash late on the evening of January 17th. At that time and place, a team of communication specialists named Bootstrap were monitoring Army maneuvers with sophisticated long-range equipment. As the monitor spun, the monitor spun the dial, he picked up on traffic on a distant amateur band. What he heard was highly unusual ham talk. The ham's remarks were, in fact, an introduction to what was to become, in the next 48 hours, America's most dramatic attempt to apprehend live aliens from outer space. The radio ham in a staccato voice. The radio ham in a staccato voice had told his listener that a large bright object had streaked down from above and crashed in the desert near Farmington. As it struck Earth, it had skidded and bounced, making a path over a mile long. Rumbling, grating, and tumbling over the desert, finally stopped. The ham then called it a whopper of an aeroplane or meteor crash, but ended his message by saying, oddly enough, that there had been no explosion. Then he signed off, advising that he was heading for the site. So were dozens of others who had witnessed the unusual night display. 12 hours later, by direct order from Outfit Air Force Base, monitors from Operation Bootstrap had become a communications and rescue team, arriving in the vicinity of that night's drama. Traveling at high speeds with a top priority, they sped on, still monitoring police and amateur airwaves. Each band they tuned in convinced them that the object of their all night's thrust was downed military aircraft containing either classified equipment or high-ranking military or civilian passengers. En route, as instructed, the team had acquired an extra communications truck, jeep, and live ammunition. Then the unexpected happened again. Another ham, corroborated by the state trooper's radio, reported a second crash at 2 p.m. in the same vicinity. Move it faster, Commander urged his night convoy. It was 8:30 a.m. on the morning of the 18th when the team arrived on site. As Major Robert Farrell, not his real name, of St. Petersburg, Florida, endeavored to clear a path to the wrecks, another meteor-like blob zoomed out of the side from directly above. There was a silence as the thing slammed to Earth. The third object cut another desert swath of billowy sand and buried itself within a mile radius of the first two crash sites. Approaching the last crash, the security team almost immediately confirmed that they were not at the scene of an accidental crash of conventional aircraft. The silhouette of the disabled object also indicated that it was no rough meteorite. What they saw in the local scene were three strange, unidentified ships of similar design, somewhat saucer-shaped. As the Bootstrap crew mingled with the crowd to survey the scene, people began banging on the hulls with a variety of tools and rocks. One man was about to fire at the hull of one of the downed ships with a high-powered rifle when the 10-man rescue squad took positive action. Dissuaded by cocked rifles of the Bootstrap crew, curious backed off. But the Bootstrap major instinctively felt uneasy. He sensed there could be intelligent life inside. Powerful microphones were held against the skin, but no internal sounds or voices were picked up. Peering inside through a hole about 7 inches in diameter, the Air Force major glimpsed the craft's scorched interior and observed two badly burned bodies reclining on seats. Eventually, a 5 by 4 foot door, totally invisible from the outside, was located and opened. Venturing in, the major could see the ship's occupants had perished in a flash fire. Had the alien ship struck a magnetic vortex high above the Earth, or was it the victim of high altitude aerial encounter? We don't know. First, the bodies were removed and placed in military bags. The charred bodies are averaged 32 inches in size, with one giant corpse of almost 4 feet. Weight was estimated by the medical autopsy records as 65 to 75 pounds, with the giant weighing close to 100. The hands of each corpse were still gloved, but they had not been wearing their glass-like helmets at impact. Closer examination showed that a touch of a finger near the collar automatically unzipped a one-piece suit to reveal bodies with a skin pigment of golden tan. The hair on each was black, their eyes had no irises, and were occidental in appearance. Their feet were slender and usually long, as were the toes. Hands and feet each had 5 appendages with nails. The sexual organs were pocketed in folds of skin when apparently not in use by species. These are not the species that they referred to in the Roswell, New Mexico case either in any way. This is a totally different incident. Major Farrell had gained entry to the ship, to this first ship by a fluke as his hand touched a door released while he felt around the outside of the window hole. Another fortunate blunder took place. Totally on his own, one of the rescue crew began yanking at the controls of the ship's console. The Major spotted him and rushed to prevent further damage. The Vandal accidentally fell against the hidden panel door, which simply opened under the sudden impact from the man's weight. The 11-inch square door had been totally invisible, as were all seams on the outside and inside of the craft. Inside the hidden panel lay a crystalline metallic ring about 18 inches in diameter and 3 inches thick. Overhead on the roof, the Major recalled having noticed an impression barely visible, about the same size as the ring. When the ring was placed in the circular groove, it clung magnetically. The humans investigating the alien craft were hardly prepared for what happened next, as the ring was twisted counterclockwise. About 40 degrees from the set point, the magnetic adhesion, which had held the ship intact, was de-energized. Bedlam broke loose both inside and out, and the ship began falling apart outwardly into 9 petal-like sections. The inside rescuers tumbled down among the separated sections, and those outside leaped away. None was hurt except for the bruises as the sections disjoined themselves, and the interior console, doors, and all access panels opened, exposing their contents. Only the center housing, located in the bottom of the ship, remained intact. It was cylindrical, 3 feet in diameter and 3 feet high. This piece was slightly radioactive and was later ascertained to be the power source of the ship's anti-gravitational force field power system. That's what I would have thought too. The storage access area contained extra flight gear, food, wafers, spare parts, medical supplies, and mapping tools unfamiliar to the rescue crew. The alien ship was from beyond Earth's own solar system. The US Air Force later concluded, and maps within showed its home planet could be in a remote part of the Milky Way or even from a constellation in another galaxy. The home planet could not be ascertained. Its mission and that of its mothership was to map Earth and report this intelligence to their home base. The men found charts showing the Earth's conformity with rivers, mountains, and cities plainly visible. Square map sheets of metallic substance showed Earth's charted grid lines running along magnetic variations. The results were unlike existing Earth cartographic methods, which show position by longitude and latitude. So it was a cartograph. Yeah. This alien ship was measured about 27 feet in diameter and 9 feet thick. The underside was slightly concave, with 3 round caster-type protrusions, 120 degrees apart, which, when extended, became the ship's landing gear. Ship design was shaped somewhat like a column lantern except that the bottom skirt was flared outward. On the third day, rescue operations were moved to a second ship. The craft was saucer-like, 36 feet in diameter, and had the same 3 caster-type landing gears as on the first ship. The crew sandbagged the outside, applied and twisted the tool ring to the center top again, and the top again. The craft parted into 9 equal sections, with the center pin power source remaining upright at the bottom. Inside, 4 more burnt bodies were found, and the rescue crew again removed the bodies of human counterparts from another world. They placed 4 dead aliens beside their 2 comrades from ship number 1. Various medical, technical, and scientific experts were now on hand. The smaller ships and their contents, along with the bodies, were loaded gingerly by cranes aboard low buoy trucks for eventual air delivery to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, hangar number 18, Dayton, Ohio. Air Research and Development Command, under the watchful eye of Air Technical Intelligence Command, would now take over their transportation and ultimate study. An outfit, what's this? At Oxford and Wright-Patterson, I think that's a typo there, please forgive me. Wright-Patterson Air Force bases, the nation's experts from all across the USA in whatever field needed, were already being assembled and sworn to secrecy. These experts would attempt to comprehend the significance of these visitors from outer space and compare America's progress with that on an alien society's space technology. Well, that's just the first 5 pages. Wow, that's just incredible, some of that just there. Like, that's some pretty good information of stuff that we don't generally hear within the truth disclosure UFO community, incidents that happened like this. So that's very, very good information. I actually enjoyed this read with all of you. It's awesome. Still got 12 pages to go, so this is going to be interesting. All right, page 6. By now, the team of expert personnel had grown to approximately 150. The largest craft, approximately 100 feet in diameter, was now approached. Unable to find an opening after digging it out, the magnetic ring again was found to be the tool for opening the ship. It was sprung apart, as were the others. The center of core of the anti-gravity propulsion device measured 9 feet in height and 9 feet in diameter. Yeah, larger craft, larger propulsion source. Its radioactivity, higher than others, was less than the emissions from a hospital X-ray machine. Lead shields were used to cover the core. Inside, 22 bodies were found. The ship was functionally the same as the smaller ones, but measured 99.9 feet in diameter. It was armed with deadly laser ray guns and had probably been shot out of the sky by another spacecraft with superior firepower, which had also dispatched the first 2 craft. Excuse me. Additionally, galleys, sleeping quarters, and baths were revealed. Utility panel buttons numbering 81 in blocks of 9 were laid out, with 9 other functional discs for use by pilots and navigators. These discs had slight indentations for fingertip control. Fingertips placed on various indenture combinations apparently gave swift commands to different electrical systems. The Earth experts wondered how the aliens' fingers were maneuverable enough to operate the systems until their hands were examined. The fingers pivoted forwards and backwards in a 180-degree arc. Wow. Hence the reason why some people have double jointed fingers and their fingers arch backwards. Yeah, I don't have it, but I've seen it. The entire crew had this physical anomaly. The scientists also confirmed that certain navigational equipment in the flight guidance systems was tuned to register mind patterns or vice versa. Each alien had 4 lungs, right, enabling him in a given time to slowly compress and comfortably breathe Earth's atmosphere. Their blood was a brownish colour and thicker than ours. The autopsy showed they probably had been breathing within their life support systems a mixture of air with less oxygen than Earth people breathe. The brown central part of their eyes was solid in colour. Beneath the outer layers, the focus membranes were hidden. Apparently, the beings were able to look into the sun without eye injury or see into the darkness of space. Right. Well, that they're looking at the sun would suggest they have a very similar membrane across their eye, similar to that of the welding lens for welding helmets, but they're able to control it because to look into the darkness of space with one of those helmets on, you wouldn't see anything. So they're obviously able to control the way the eye works, so in the darkness of space and see light. Okay. The corpses were undressed and immersed in alcohol. The group was so nearly identical that they seemed to be genetically cloned. Unless they were seen walking our streets in a single group, their variances to humans would probably go undetected. Each about to be 25 years of age as at the time is measured. Concentrated food wafers were discovered. Each of these was about 1.5 inches long, the size of a single stick of dentine gum. One wafer found near a body was dropped accidentally into a tub of water and dissolved immediately. Its aroma was like that of vanilla extract. It bubbled and frothed over the rim of the bucket, finally rising into a deliciously tasting dough that would have filled a 30-gallon vat. Wow. The rescue team jokingly called the mixture desert manna. You'll see why. Later, it was proven that one small food wafer kept a person alert and without the need of sleep for at least 3 days. Wow. Measurements of the big ship show it to be 99.9 feet in diameter, with its outer rim forming a perfect circle. It was 27 feet through the center of the dome and 18 feet at the center edge. Color was a metallic grey with no visible markings, windows, or openings. Within 2 weeks, the operation was over. The remaining bodies were placed in glass cylinders, and along with them, their dismembered ship, covered with tarpaulins, were hauled out of the desert. Country police assisted in directing traffic. By night, the ship and other remnants of the accident were shipped to Kirkland Air Force Base near Albuquerque, New Mexico. From there, they were placed on board a huge 6-pusher type propeller aircraft known as a C-99. 3 trips were required to transport the material to White Pat Air Force Base. White Pats. I just call it White Pats. It's easier. In January, a report was made to assemble congressmen, senators, and military in the underground command center of the outfit of the Offutt. Okay, it's obviously an abbreviation for something. Offutt. Oh no, this is an actual Offutt Air Force Base. Viewers were shown the bodies, films, samples, and other supporting graphs and data. Presentation on the findings were made approximately 20 technical were made by approximately 20 technical experts called in over a 5-hour period. Sobered by the first-hand account of so many reliable witnesses was Captain James Ruppelt, who headed up the official Project Blue Book on UFO sightings. His name is very much mentioned in Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book upstairs. By agreement of those present and with the approval of President Eisenhower, the lid of secrecy was screwed airtight on the Farmington incident. The official line on all encounters and sightings grew harder. Beings from outer space did not exist. Notwithstanding secretive undertakings began thereafter to assess the outer space technology and scientific advances found on the ships, and to compare them with US Air Force accomplishments. The nation's strength or weakness ultimately lies with its people. The official attitude of air intelligence was that the American people could not comprehend the beings flight years away for purposes unknown. As the official books were closed on the Farmington incident, air intelligence began rounding up film and tapes taken at the crash. Newspapers made brief mention of the story. Talkative people were coerced at the Farmington affair, and the Farmington affair was where it began in New Mexico. Since 1955, the secret has seeped out into several related scientific, medical, and technical areas through writings, speakers, and references referring to the phenomenon. Today, it is estimated that at least 1,000 persons have knowledge of the crashes of the 3 alien spacecraft. Wow, that's incredible. Excuse me, folks, just need to wet the whistle. Right. Case number 2, the robot Earth Watchers. It's interesting. Hundreds of sightings were analysed over a 3-year period in several countries, but there are no better cases than those contacts recorded in America between Homo sapiens and beings from beyond. Many helpful intelligence authorities believe a national awareness of alien presence must be expanded, and quickly too, in order to prevent any mass fear or hysteria. That being has been certainly perpetuated over the last 60, 70 years especially. Certain of the aliens who have already arrived among us want their presence known too. They may be the vanguard of intelligent beings scattered throughout the cosmos, whose plans call for the opening up of communication with Earth before this century ends. Therefore, only a brief mention of the next 2 cases is essential to portray the reality of yet another kind of alien eyes used to watch early Earth's military installations. It was in 1958, near the town of Oregon, near the Columbia River, that the episode took place. The unknown occupants were captured and removed, their craft down by a support firing unit for protection of the Air Force bases at Fairchild and Tacoma. Later, the ship was transported to the headquarters of the SAC at Afoot. We're going to find out what that base is. Upon gaining entry, there was found not humans or humanoids, but 4 robots controls. After failing to remove the heads using conventional methods, an attempt was made to carry one of the robots by lifting the feet and the back of the head. On raising the head upwards, corresponding movement occurred with one of the arms, revealing an unseen release mechanism in the back of the skull, which uncovered the robot's brains. Literally hundreds of light sensors composed the eyes of the robot, with signals from these sensors sent by instantaneous replay tape to the robot's computer located in its chest cavity. As the computer accepted the impulse from light meters' eyes, it sent the response orders to the arms, legs, feet, and fingers or head, telling each or all members to take what action was necessary to properly operate or adjust ship controls. After the computer received the tape instructions, they were logged in a memory, like our brain, where we can remember. The reel or tape continuing back to the light sensors and thence to the computer or brain for continuing instructions. What they describe very similar there is that that's describing data, if you will. Commander data from Star Trek Next Generation, if any of you are familiar with Star Trek. What they've actually described there is very similar to how Commander data operates. His eyes are the light sensors that feed the information through to his positronic brain, which then filters down into his central computer system, which is in his chest cavity, which then sends the necessary sensors out to the appendages that need required action. That's incredible. So I can see where Gene Roddenberry derived some of this information possibly from, maybe. quite possible. Or at least the writers for Star Trek Next Generation, Gene Roddenberry. The robot's feet and hands had only 3 digits each, or Data had 5. The robot craft was navigated by these analog units to map planet Earth and to do surveillance. Of the 4 units found at the Iragon crash, only 1 was undamaged. 6 months after the Iragon recovery, the US began making its first thermography pictures. Earth scientists are now convinced that the technology of one planet or solar system may differ vastly from that of another. Thus, a mothership situated high in the sky over Iragon on the day of the robot crash was used to initiate the master surveillance plan of Earth and record same from its drones located perhaps over various US strategic military areas. An engineered rush to the Iragon site for the record concluded that the analog ship had struck an uncharted magnetic vortex at 15,000 miles per hour, but not everyone agreed. The crash landing of this alien ship from some unknown planet also was reported by the Air Force as the meteorite. Although, when tracked by radar, it was seen to have made a 90-degree turn. Meteorites make 90-degree turns. Upon being pursued by another object before the subject craft lost power and tumbled to the ground. At least 10 alien ships have crashed in America since the first one was found. And aside from robots, perhaps as many 40 bodies much like ours have been recovered and autopsied. Today, reports on them are filed in a large library of information on the premises of the CIA in Arlington, Virginia. Why am I not surprised? Wow. Why am I not surprised about Arlington, Virginia? Case number 3. The mantle and live aliens. How long have we been going for? Wow, it's nearly an hour. We've got this far in already. And that was on page 15. Case number 3. The UFO annals, one of the most repeated stories is that of Captain Mantell, who was shot down by a UFO over Godnam Field, Kentucky on January 7, 1948. The official version stops there, except to add that his remains were recovered, followed by an appropriate military funeral, which ended the episode. But the story of the 25-year-old World War II ace was far from finished by the recovery of his remains. At that point, the real story begins. Just seconds prior to Mantell being shot down by the UFO, he had landed a lucky burst of machine gun fire into a vital section of the alien craft. I highly doubt that, because it's protected by an electromagnetic field, unless these craft particularly weren't protected by flying by other propulsion means. Simultaneously with Mantell's P-51 fighter, or P-51 Mustang, love that, Cadillac in the sky, plummeting to its hillside crash site, the UFO also fluttered to Earth within 3 miles of the military airfield over which it had been intercepted. The tower at Godnam Field had reportedly initially an object which could not be identified on their radar. Meanwhile, flying a routine flight over the field was a group of Kentucky Air National Guard, of which Captain Thomas J. Mantell, as flight leader, was requested to investigate and, if possible, challenge. On reaching the 8,000-foot level, Captain Mantell radioed in to the tower that a bright circular object was hovering below him. He kept contact with the tower as the object moved 50 feet below his plane and began passing him. Next, the object hovered slightly alongside Mantell's starboard wing, right-hand side. Inside the 30-foot craft, Mantell saw 3 figures observing him through the portholes. This one had portholes inside. I've had experiences myself where I've been on board ships where I've remembered portholes and looking out. part of my experiences that I'm sharing with all of you as well. The UFO then rose to 30,000 feet with Captain Mantell unable to close the distance in pursuit. After chasing the UFO in a futile attempt to overtake it, Mantell reported an about turn by the UFO as it turned down on him at fantastic speed in what seemed like a suicide course, like suicide bombers, like Japanese dive bombers, World War II. Yeah, very similar. At the last moment, Mantell fired a burst at the object. It stopped abruptly in midair, and the collision was barely avoided as the UFO fell toward it. Hot in pursuit, Captain Mantell rolled and followed. The tower maintained radar contact was able to observe the chase. As the UFO descended with the P-51 on its tail, those below saw a blinding flash, as though perhaps a burst of explosive light had struck the P-51. The aeroplane broke apart and crashed on the side of the mountain about 5 miles from Franklin Kennedy Air Base. The day was cloudy with a slight haze as trucks on the field rolled out after ground crews witnessed the flash of light and had struck the P-51, after which it began to fall earthward in pieces. The Air Force captain and sergeant photographer rushed through the gates towards the falling UFO. As they sped towards the site, the photographer, using a zoom lens, also caught the tragic scene of the P-51 breaking apart within sight of the base. Meanwhile, the unidentified flying object skipped and tumbled slowly to Earth, glowing like a ball of fire. It was this bright glow emitted by the UFO that enabled the emergency recovery crew and the photographer to spot exactly the alien crash landing site. The foregoing is the story of the chase Captain Mantell shot down the UFO. The UFO in turn destroyed him before either craft had crashed. Before either craft had crashed, the airbase had hurriedly dispatched 2 emergency crews. One rushed to the P-51 wreckage and the other vehicle raced to the site of the unidentified flying object. The photographing team had orders to head for the UFO, but en route was able to photograph the disintegrating P-51. The Air Force intelligence reached Mantell's crash site. The plane had disintegrated into thousands of pieces. There was no fire and no odor of burnt flesh or fabric. The captain found, still in helmet and suit, they found Captain Mantell still in his helmet and suit and boots. As they removed the clothing, the emergency crew removed clean skeleton intact from head to foot. Excuse me, everyone, I had to have a cough. Gotta get in. Got it again. Okay. The remains were taken to an Air Force laboratory for identification and autopsy. The skeleton of the deceased captain was later placed in a sealed container and taken to a nearby undertaker, where it was put in a coffin and sealed. So what we're getting here is that upon the plane had actually disintegrated into thousands of pieces. Okay, there was no fire and no odor of burnt flesh or fabric, but yet they found Captain Mantell still in his helmet, suit, and boots. And as they removed the clothing, and the emergency crew recovered a clean skeleton intact from head to foot. What sort of technology can do that to a human being? Well, it's very high output electricity, obviously, but of some sort, I don't know, to leave no odor of burnt flesh or smell. Yeah, or fabric. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Because the fabric and everything was still intact for the flight suit. Wow. The story of the UFO crash site had a different ending. As the photographer continued to shoot pictures of the crash, They saw the glow of the crash cease as they arrived. The door opened and slowly three beings emerged with their hands in the air. The colour of their complexions was light tan. They were tall in stature, with high and narrow foreheads. The airmen rushed towards the UFO, guns drawn, as one of the beings in perfect English said calmly, "We mean you no harm, we have come to peace." Typical military mind. Now go. The photographer sergeant began snapping official pictures of the exterior and interior of the craft. These pictures were to remain hidden in a Washington vault for almost 30 years. The aliens were hustled back to the base as the confused gate guard was ordered to permit entry of the group without identification of the airmen or aliens. 3 days later, the administration building, the aliens were still being interrogated by a battery of Air Force intelligence officers from the Pentagon. Their alien story, they came from Venus. I've heard this. Venus is very inhabited, okay? The capital planet of this solar empire. They said other alien craft in the air at the time had crews from Pluto, Saturn, Mars, etc. Earth military installations were being scrutinized carefully. They said with no hostile intentions except to record Earth's progress for interplanetary travel and nuclear war. The Earth stigma that had alerted our sister planets to keep up constant surveillance. They said that upon being disabled by the P-51, they instituted a non-retaliatory action. Non-retaliatory? What cost a man a life? The craft was programmed to beam in by radar fix or any adversary who shot first. The human-like beings repeated that they were sorry and had not intended to take the life of the Earthman. Okay, so it was a reaction by the ship. Okay. The Air Force was undecided just what to do with their unexpected visitors, who in fact had entered American airspace only to be observed. American airspace. Please. As base radar scanned the sky, it tracked additional spaceships hovering in high above. Therefore, it was deduced that to try the aliens for murder would bring reprisals from above. Indeed, it would. 3 aliens were placed routinely in a guardhouse. It was while they were incarcerated, the second night, that the problem of earthly laws and ethics was solved without earthly help. During the night, the military policeman in charge of detention left his guard duty and ran to the officer in charge. "They're gone," he shouted. "The prisoners are gone." Quick examination by security revealed that the cell door was locked, the barred windows still intact, and no escape holes had been cut into the walls. And it only suggests one thing. Less than an hour later, the answer came. Without human action, a message began to appear on the station's telex. Simultaneously, in the tower and communications room, the same message was audible. In effect, it said, excuse me, "We are a companion craft of the one shot down. We regret having killed your airman. The act was not intentional. In future, please instruct your pilots not to fire on our ships to prevent further loss of human life." It's a fair ask. Our spacemen kept in your prison were just rescued by all means totally unknown to you. At another time, after friendship is established between us, we will tell you how the secret escape was made. We are in your space to observe. We mean you no harm. Again, please forgive us for the unavoidable killing of the pilot. We are truly sorry. That sounds like someone that does have compassion and empathy, and is truly sorry for the actions taken by the ship's natural response. I'm sure there's an override switch, but at the time of the alien disappearance, some unusual and verified observations were made by several witnesses. Here is what is described as being seen. So another quick sip of my coffee. Okay, I'm finished. All right. A 100-foot unidentified craft dropped down from above and hovered over the guardhouse. From the craft, there emerged a beam of white light with a greenish tinge. On or within this beam of light, the three aliens ascended or were taken up through the ceiling by unknown means to the presiding ship above the guardhouse. But what that light has done basically is actually changed the molecular density of the roof and the beam supports, etc., within the guardhouse to make them movable through. In other words, you can just pass straight through. We've seen this in movies such as Race to Witch Mountain. The young boy that's in that movie is able to actually change his molecular density to either withstand brutal force or impacts, or to be able to pass through solid objects. So in other words, that's raising or lowering one's vibrational frequency. Okay, so basically by raising the frequency or lowering the frequency to whatever to match, if you match the molecular density frequency of the object, you can actually make it malleable, pliable, or pass through. Okay, a non-earthling who has been seen in Washington for several years and has been a confidant of presidents has described the escape ray. He said it was a solid beam that disintegrated objects in its path by disassembling the atom structure. Okay, there you go. While the ray shone and allowed reassembling of the atom particles when the ray was turned off. Well, there you go. It actually opened up a hole, took away the material atom by atom, and then reconstituted it all atom by atom again when the beam was turned off and took out the full roof again. Wow, that's some pretty great tech right there. The Washington spaceman, whose name is Plateau, funnily enough, it's the name of a character in Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, his name is Plateau, explained that the ray principle had been used in Venus long before the present Earth civilization began, which he declared was over 33,000 years ago. Plateau said that the ray was also developed on Earth's sunken continent of Atlantis, but that its principle was lost when the continent sank 12,000 years ago. I believe that it was 12,000 years ago as well. That confirms and validates some of the other work that's been done by others, great scholars in that field, exoarchaeology and exogeology. As ethereal as the beings appeared, excuse me, that one came with, appeared to be at the time of their escape, they all bore unmistakable human characteristics. Body shape was human, features occidental, hair blonde, fingers long and slender, height 5'6" to 5'10", appearance youthful, habits. While in detention, they took water into which they dropped red or white pills at different times. They used toilet facilities, and the official reports say they passed nutrients and urinated as do human males. No wonder. They insisted they came from the ancestral planets of Earth white races. I believe that. The whole universe is vastly, vastly inhabited. When you look at Da Vinci and what he was trying to depict, excuse me, the man in the wheel, when he drew this, fundamentally what Da Vinci was trying to describe through his drawing is that throughout the known three-dimensional universe, which is circular, because it's a sphere, our three-dimensional known universe, that the three-dimensional form, man, is consistent, or man or woman, upright, bipedal, 5 fingers, 5 toes, thinking, logical, reason, rationale, etc., is consistent in form no matter where you go. It might vary depending on the dominant race of being, or species, I should say, of dominant race of species on that planet. It could vary. You could have a bird-like group of beings that are the most dominant within that planet's habitat, who have evolved over millions of years to be upright and stand upright with 5 fingers, 5 toes, reason, rationale, thought capacity, capable of love, empathy, compassion, okay, logic, everything, a whole lot. It's easy to think that this is what Da Vinci was trying to get across in this simple drawing. It makes you look at Da Vinci in a totally different way when you look at it from that perspective. Wow. So ends the Mantell incident, except for over 2,000 pieces of official correspondence between the base, the Pentagon, and other agencies at Maxwell Air Force Base and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where the Venetian ship finally ended up. After the Mantell incident, Air Force intelligence privately wondered why, if the aliens were able to retrieve the people, why hadn't they retrieved their ship? But publicly, the Air Force gave out this version of the Mantell incident. Mantell lost consciousness due to oxygen starvation. 2, the object which Mantell was chasing may have been a Skyhawk Navy balloon which had been released in the area. Oh, wow, that's classic. Wow, we're only up page 12. Jeez, we're going for a bit. Wow. Okay. Washington, February 18th, 1975, time 10 p.m. A hovering squadron of high-altitude lights had just placed America's squadron under a blanket of surveillance. Before departing, they would send shivers through the security surrounding US President Gerald Ford, and their mission would also change the USA's scientific thrust into outer space within 60 days. Look, on this winter's night in question, the sky over Washington was clear and visibility was excellent. High above, at 50,000 feet, 12 unidentified and stationary lights had appeared. We know what this, maybe this. The lights were not celestial bodies, mirages, or balloons, nor were they conventional aircraft. They were, in fact, UFOs, a name first applied in 1966 by the Air Force to describe glowing numbers of unidentified flying objects sighted around the globe. At 3 major airports around Washington, several monitor systems handle traffic and also act as an early warning vigilance for unidentified aircraft. There is the AACS, i.e. Aircraft and Airways Communication System, the sophisticated radar at Andrews Air Force Base, and the GPR ground positioning radar, etc. Therefore, excuse me, besides untrained street personnel who spotted the mysterious lights, there were also the competent operators of the AACS, Andrews Air Force Base radar, and GPR, who were continuously watching the activities of the unidentified flying objects. At 10:16, one of the lights detached itself from the formation and, peeling off to the right, dropped towards the city. Its color changed from blue to white. In a park in Georgetown, the northwest section of the capital, the light landed as it went out there. The light landed as it went out. There appeared in its place a solid object. Standing where the light had been was a 30-foot saucer-like object with dome, supported by tripod legs. Underneath the craft door opened, from which the stairs extended to the ground, and an extraordinary looking being with occidental features descended. The 6-foot-tall man moved briskly away from the perimeter of the craft and evaporated before his viewers. Wow. As he did so, curious onlookers who had seen the crafts landing in the neighborhood ran toward the machine. But 10 feet away from the craft, an invisible force kept the sightseers away. The hatch closed and the machine stood isolated and alone. At about 10:20, after the being had departed from the craft, there simultaneously appeared a stranger before the security guard at the street entrance to the White House. In perfect English, he asked to see President Ford. The being's request was refused. At approximately 10:21, a being in a flight suit was seen walking down the hallway of the room. A Secret Serviceman challenged the future. Sorry, I had that quick phone call because I actually had to silence my phone. I do apologize. At approximately 10:21, a being in a flight suit in an open room. A Secret Serviceman challenged the figure from behind. It continued on. A bullet from the gun of the president's guard apparently passed through the being without drawing any blood. Wow. At the next instant, the stranger disappeared from the view of the Secret Service pursuer and silently passed through the locked and closed door of the Oval Office, the Oval Room. Thereupon, it stopped in front of President Ford, working alone at his desk. The startled president looked up at the figure of a tall, slim man with black hair, dressed in what appeared to be a trim flight suit over a silver-coloured jacket and pants tucked into calf-length boots. The being spoke calmly. President Ford, I am sorry to intrude in such unearthly way, but I have a message of great importance which must be told. Again. He continued, I am a scientist from Earth's sister planet Venus, which, regardless of Earth's scientific postulations, is inhabited by people identical to those like yourself on Earth. But my mission in being here tonight concerns special knowledge which others in this solar system have elected to give the United States as our chosen custodian for planet Earth. Much of the aliens' conversation remains classified, but some of the subject matter has been verified, by executive sources. In general, the visitor spoke of the dawning of a new age for Earth in science, medicine, and other wonders. What does that say for where we are now? Wow. But hinged his remarks with a single admonition. Earth must first denounce nuclear war. It's not too much to ask. The verdict of the outer terrestrial stemmed from an inherent moral law of the universe, which Earth nations had broken by splitting the atom to destroy their fellow men. Almost an hour later, the outer terrestrial departed. Upon leaving, he placed on the president's desk a dull silvery object. Ridiculous. Phone keeps ringing. I do apologize about that. There we go. It was on silent. I don't know how I've got on silent. Okay. The stranger called it a Venusian book, a gift from his planet to America. Simultaneously, several miles away, the being re-entered the vehicle in which he came. It took off and joined the lights above, at which time the formation disappeared off the radar screens of the nation's capital. The meeting between an outer terrestrial being and the world leader is only one of hundreds recorded since Earth's first nuclear explosion took place in 1945. American presidents alone have had a minimum of 6 visits. Earth has been watched by outsiders for at least 45 millenniums, and throughout its pre-Adamite civilizations. That's pre-Adamite, it's pre-flood, younger, driest period. According to their spokesman, they have witnessed this latest civilization advent of the railroad, the discovery of electricity, the aeroplane and auto, the rocket, the smashing of the atom, and lately the fearful number of nuclear test explosions. And finally, the uncontrolled aggressions of nations to make their own atomic bombs with intentions to deploy them. As the president picked up the object and examined it that night of February 18, 1975, he called for the Secret Service personnel. He also asked for the Secretary of State and scheduled a meeting of the General Staff to be held at the Pentagon as soon as possible to evaluate the disc. During the presidential dialogue with the extraterrestrial being, he had declared that the US Air Force should learn the formula encased in the disc. Mr. Ford gingerly examined the object, but laid it down, perplexed as to why the alien should leave such an indecipherable thing as a parting gesture. Was it really a goodwill gift of science from another world? Or was it some diabolical destructive force that might enslave onlookers or destroy a city? Like his predecessors, going back to Franklin D. Roosevelt, President Ford must have asked himself some questions startling questions about this peaceful extraterrestrial invasion whose spokesman looked human and acted like friends, notwithstanding their arrivals were always without warning or prior signal. And in a broader sense, US officialdom was also asking, why all the sudden attention which Earth was now receiving after years of comparative isolation? Very good question. Even more perplexing questions were being asked by the suspicious military and science worlds. If these extraterrestrials were so advanced scientifically and metaphysically, what did they know about the future destiny of mankind that made them suddenly want to share their knowledge with a single nation, the USA? Aside from these basic quandaries, other sobering judgments had already been established, which authorities had long hesitated to pass on, and for an understandable reason. Those claiming to come from our solar system and from beyond were often nearly identical to certain Earth races in appearance and in biological, functional, and mental ways. Obviously, there existed a correlation between Earth beings and inhabitants from certain other planets. As President Ford may have pondered these revelations that historic night, he was well aware that alien ships of countless origins were now bridging the time and distance barrier between various planets in the universe, the knowledge of which leading nations of the world had denied the public. Furthermore, appraisal of the combined worldwide UFO phenomena by military consultants was singularly conclusive. They concluded that all of planet Earth was under systemic surveillance by three distinct classifications of alien intruders. Those were labeled friendly, presumed hostile, and unknown. Category 1, friendly, were usually round-winged shape, originated within our solar system, whose human occupants have openly made themselves known to certain Earth governments and their leaders from time to time, such as the foregoing visit to President Ford. The same extraterrestrials had occasionally appeared by accident, for example, the Captain Mantell incident over Godman Field, Kentucky, 1948. Category 2, presumed hostile. These aliens generally come in round-winged planes and were from human resemblance from diminutive sizes to over 6 feet in height. They had, on occasion, attempted to infiltrate Earth by establishing hidden bases in remote areas, and their spacecraft were also engaged in mapping Earth and other questionable activities. It is believed they originated from one planet or constellation, example, the Farmington Affair from 1955. Category 3, unknowns. Okay, that will be in chapter 19. Yep, strangers in our skies, who were patrolling Earth skies and watching our people and military installations increasingly in the 1970s. They arrived in spacecraft of various shapes, dimensions and shapes, up to 1,000 feet long. Wow. Occupants were observed to be of a variety of physiological descriptions, some of which by standards bordered on the ridiculous or grotesque according to their own admissions, which were delivered telepathically to Air Force pilots and airport controllers, etc. Observations of their spacecraft by competent observers suggest that the space technology may be more advanced than that of this solar system. By the repetitious warning had been delivered by all friendly extraterrestrials with whom physical and voice contact had been made, according to informed Air Force sources. That constant warning stated a nuclear holocaust on Earth was possible within a generation unless immediate plans were made now to prevent it. Hence the reason why they visited all the silos during the late 70s and early 80s, taking away all the yield capacity of the uranium used for the warheads. As President Ford may have reflected on the promise of sudden increased knowledge for this world, in exchange for abandoning the international nuclear race, 2,700 scientists, engineers, physicists, astronomers, geophysicists, mathematicians, geologists, and radio engineers were occupied 24 hours a day at the Goddard Center in Maryland, keeping watch on a more disturbing phenomenon. A magnetically weak but inhabited alien planet over twice the size of Earth had wandered into our solar system and attached itself to the force field between the Sun and the Earth. By the year 2000, this oncoming intruder could possibly regress the climate where a third of the world's people are located towards another ice age. And I think that would have happened. If that was going to happen, that would have happened by now. It's 23 years after the year 2000. Its effects were particularly being felt in the northern latitudes, where teams of American, Canadian, Japanese, and Russian meteorologists and weathermen daily gathered the evidence of an abrupt change in the world's weather patterns. By underlying these hidden discoveries, the new knowledge of outer space, the real question being asked by the world's leaders was how to tell the public without creating panic. Well, they created this problem. Let's see if we get out of it. Collective scientific minds working on the secret already were aware of these explosive truths and the problems they presented. But how much of the biased viewpoints of our history, religion, philosophy, and science would have to be discarded in order to make way for the new 20th century revelations? Well, that's the thing. Religion was created from a spiritual aspect. It was in order put together in order to keep you a prisoner in your mind from discovering the truth of what our true lineage and connections are to the stars and the inhabitants within our universes, the whole universe. Right? Everything is connected. We are connected to them. We share 99.98% of the DNA. These revelations clearly indicate Earthlings are not isolated, but in fact are part of an interplanetary league of intelligent creatures. Our counterparts from planets nearby and other destinations, light years away, are trying to give warring Earth nations a message. The aliens are telling us to stop the nuclear race and to destroy our stockpiles before we destroy our planet and its civilization. In return for heeding this advice, they would provide Earthmen and women with the advanced technological, scientific, and medical secrets of the universe. What an offer you can't quite refuse, eh? There we go, we're on to chapter 2. So we've finished chapter 1, everyone. So that was quite riveting, just to hear some of those case files alone. I hadn't heard any of those case files myself, and I've been through quite a lot. I've read quite a lot. I've got quite a lot of books upstairs, and I'd never heard of any of those cases in the past. So I was very pleased to be able to read them with you, the audience, and discover from ourselves first-hand information that had been derived from very reliable sources throughout the military world. So that's something to be had, eh? I think that's actually information that we can all assimilate and to say that has direct implications to where we are now presently in the disclosure community and where we are as a civilization heading to in the next few years. So in saying that, everyone, I'm going to wrap it up because I've been talking for about an hour and 33 minutes already. So I'm going to let you all go. I do apologize because I would love to continue this because this has been a really great morning for me, doing this and sharing this with all of you, the audience. Just to remind you all, for all of you that do see this later on playback, please head over to all my channels. Like if you're on my Rumble channel, please head over to my main channel at YouTube and secondary channel at YouTube and Telegram, and go and subscribe to all of them, and vice versa to everyone else. Go back and forth and subscribe so that we can hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, because I'm going to try and make things happen with that 1,000 subscribers. It'd be awesome. But please also go over to Dr. Michael Salla. I'll be leaving the links in the description below for you to go and click on and go and subscribe to him and hit his notification bell, and also save his website to your favorites as well. That would be exopolitics.org. I'll also leave a link in the description for Miss Elena Danaán as well, and all of her wonderful information that she's bringing forth as the emissary for the Galactic Federation. Okay, so everyone, I'd love to stick around, but I've got to go. It's a big day ahead of me, and I've got a lot to do. And so until next time, everyone, I love you heaps. Take care, be safe, and do it well. And remember, always unlearn and discern. Take care, everyone. Love you heaps. Until next time.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain, pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane, pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less. Your check is I'm chess, what's happening next? Yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson. He got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just wrote an obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take a redemption. Just kill no discretion. Your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression.